Church of Ireland had been officially disestablished as the state-supported church on the 1st of January 1871 as a result of the Irish Church Act. With the withdrawal of state funding from the Church of Ireland, the onus fell on individual parishes to fund parish infrastructure, etc. A report in the Sligo Chronicle of the 21st of January 1871, headed Church Sustentation Fund, says, "The collection made at Rathbarran Church on last Sunday by Charles W. O'Hara, Esquire, and his assistant church warden was £56, 10 shillings and 1 pence, which, with £1,000, Mr. O'Hara's munificent subscription, places to the credit of Killoran parish in this county the sum of £1,956, 10 shillings and 1 penny. Considering that the parish is not large, nor the congregation very numerous, the result is highly cheering in the present position of the despoiled Church of Ireland." Note the angry tone of despoiled. There had naturally been much opposition to disestablishment. Following disestablishment, the continuance of Killoran parish was ensured by the support of the O'Haras and the Percivals and by the contribution of parishioners. The following years were difficult years for the Church of Ireland because of disestablishment and also because of the policy, as they saw it, of continual appeasement of nationalist demands, the killing home rule with kindness policy. As they thought, the policy didn't work, and from a unionist, loyalist point of view, it seemed a catalogue of surrenders to nationalist demands. The various Land Acts culminated in the Wyndham Land Act of 1903. Negotiations to purchase the O'Hara estate began immediately, but it wasn't until December 1908 when most tenants appeared to have accepted O'Hara's offer and signed purchase agreements. Obviously, Protestant tenant farmers benefited from these land acts also. The Local Government Ireland Act of 1898 brought to an end landlord control of local government in Ireland and ended the involvement of the O'Haras in local politics. Nationalist control of local government in the succeeding period often led to discrimination against Protestants in local appointments. At the beginning of the 20th century, Protestants made up 15% of the population of Sligo Borough, the highest of any Connacht town, and 10% of the county. The Protestants of Sligo, especially Sligo town, campaigned strongly against Home Rule in 1912 and 1930. Branches of the Irish Unionist Alliance, the Women's Unionist Alliance, and the Irish Junior Unionist Alliance were formed and public meetings held. Protestant businessmen, with some Catholic businessmen, formed a Ratepayers Association in Sligo town and succeeded in having proportional representation introduced at Sligo Corporation elections for the first time in Britain or Ireland at the Sligo Corporation election of January 1990. The Great War Memorial to 19 men who served from this Church of Ireland parish includes 2 who died in the war. Robert Alfred Burke, Caroline, died in July 1917, aged 25. He was the son of Robert and Mary Jane Burke. His father, Robert, gives his occupation as farmer, shopkeeper and lime burner in the 1911 census. The Sligo Independent said, "Alfie Burke was noted for his pluck and determination, as many an exhibition of these characteristics he gave in the hunting field and at horse jumping competitions. The parish of Killoran will miss him much. He was secretary of the local branch of the Church of Ireland Temperance Society and a member of the church choir." The other death was that of John Stewart, the son of a Temple House gardener, domestic servant, also John, a Scottish Presbyterian. John Jr. was 26 when he died in December 1950. John's father had been employed in Temple House in 1911, but died sometime between 1911 and 1917. His mother, Sophia, then moved to Belfast, so John Stewart's death record has a Belfast address, not a Sligo one. His two brothers also fought in the Great War. The following years were troubled years, during which Sligo and Southern Unionists felt betrayed by the government and their fellow Protestants in the north. In 1918, Charles O'Hara says, "Home rule in any form would be absolutely unthinkable under the existing state of affairs. It would mean handing over this country to Sinn Féiners." However, he had to face the developing reality, and during and after the truce, he frequently dealt with local IRA leaders, recognising their de facto positions of authority. There were few incidents in Killoran parish during the War of Independence or Civil War, and no one from the parish made a claim to the Irish Grants Committee. There is a report in the Sligo Independent of 12th of March 1921. It reads, "Rathbarran Protestant Church recently raided, apparently for arms or ammunition, by the Sinn Féiners, but the only thing they found in the way of explosives was a simple box of matches." I haven't come across any other mention of that incident. And during the Civil War, there was the killing of Harry Breheny in Killarney and a skirmish at Lachine between Free Staters and anti-treaty forces. It is interesting, by the way, to note that historians of this period, including myself, have plenty of quotes and statements about the attitude of Protestant landed gentry and prominent businessmen to these events and changes, but have very little information on the attitude of Protestant rural farming families. As regards Killoran Protestants, it appears that they survived the troubled period by keeping their heads down and remaining quiet, and they faced the future with determination. They then had to contend with a Free State which gradually became more nationalist and more Roman Catholic, and eventually turned into a republic. Over these years, the Irish population in general was declining, but the decline of Church of Ireland numbers was greater. Miriam Moffat says that between 1871 and 1941, the population of the Church of Ireland dioceses of Conry and Killala fell by 66.4%. The equivalent Roman Catholic drop was 45.6%. Antrim-born Reverend Thomas Allen led the parish through the turmoil and into the Free State. He was rector of Killoran from 1904 and dean of Conry from 1916 until his accidental death in 1927. When he died, the Sligo Independent says, "His friendship was not confined to the members of his own flock, but was freely given to all with whom he came in contact, irrespective of creed or class." His funeral was said to have been attended by an extremely large crowd composed of all creeds and classes. John Charles Forrester succeeded him for 2 years, and then in 1930 Herbert James Macready Bryan became vicar and remained so until he retired in 1965. In 1946, Archdeacon Macready Bryan was the spokesman for a delegation from Killarney Development Committee to the County Council, asking for some work for what they called the most neglected town in the county. The delegation included Peter McGuinness, Paul O'Grady, John Fawcett and P.J. Malloy. When a delegation from the council visited Killarney in 1947, both the Roman Catholic parish priest and the archdeacon were among the group which met them. When Canon Forrester, who had served briefly at Rathbarran, died in 1933, The Gazette said in its obituary, "Those who knew Canon Forrester were not surprised that he could not find scope for his energies in this little remote country parish in the west of Ireland, but decided after a comparatively short stay to take up work in England." In the following issue, Macready Bryan objected to the portrayal of his parish, saying that Forrester had explained to him the reasons why he left to go to serve in England. The facts are these. The parish is not little, neither is it remote, being but 13 miles from the town of Sligo. It is a big parish, affording ample scope for the energies of an active pastor, as the following table will show. Number of parishioners, about 300. Number of children on school roll, 50. 23 of whom are brought by motor conveyance. Sunday school roll, 30. Average attendance at morning prayer, 75. Oft times there is a congregation of 120. The communicants list, owing to Canon Forrester's faithful ministry, is a very healthy one. The parish he was referring to, of course, was the amalgamated parish of Killoran and Conwy, which amalgamation lasted from 1923 to 1960. It was amalgamated with Emlafad, Ballymote, from 1960 to 1974, with Tubbercurry, Kilmactygh and Conwy, 1975 to 1997. The amalgamation of 1960 saw the glebe house and land becoming vacant, and it was sold the following year, Macready Bryan moving to Ballymote. But Rathbarran Church continued in use where others didn't. The Cathedral Church at Conwy, for instance, was deconsecrated in 1998. Repair and renovation continued all through these years. In 1900, £150 was raised at a bazaar held in the courthouse Sligo for a new church roof. In November of that year, the Lord Bishop of Tuam presided at the reopening of the church, which has been re-roofed and artistically renovated inside. In 1928, the War Memorial and that beautiful memorial desk to Reverend Thomas Allen were put in place. And the following year, the Gazette mentions that large sums of money have been spent recently in repairs and decoration. It must have been during these that a Dublin steeplejack, John Scully, fell from the tower onto the roof and then onto the ground and suffered severe injuries. The hospital stated that it was a miracle he hadn't been killed instantly. Electric light was installed in March 1954 in the glebe house and presumably also in the church. In 1959, the Gazette reported that the bishop formally rededicated Rathbarran Church on the 26th of April after major painting and redecoration. A real transformation has taken place, the Gazette said. The walls were washed down and repainted by the young men of the parish, while the ladies varnished all the pews and carefully treated the reredos, pulpit, prayer desk, sanctuary chairs and holy table with a specified oil. They also stained the tiles of the long centre aisle. At this time, the vestry and baptistry were moved to the back of the church. A new sanctuary carpet was presented by Mrs. Fred O'Hara. The Gazette complimented the astonishing zeal of the workers under the direction of Mr. and Mrs. Donal O'Hara, who it said were ably assisted by Miss E. Barlow, Miss M. Craig, Mrs. McMaster and others. In 1972, a major fundraising campaign for Killoran Church took place, publicised by almost a full page in the Gazette and a leaflet inviting contributions to the Repair Fund treasurer, Donal O'Hara. Architects have uncovered deterioration which will cost several £1,000s to repair, it stated. In 1985, Killoran Parish was congratulated for major external repair work. And so this church continues to function as a parish church as it has done for over 250 years. Thanks to Reverend Andrew for his kind invitation to speak here. I hope what I've said was interesting, even informative. Thanks to Amanda Michaelia for her advice and assistance, and thanks to her mother Betty Price for showing me around the church. And finally, I'd like to congratulate the Church of Ireland community based around this church, Rathbarran Church, on being here, on surviving all these turbulent times since that first sod was turned about 253 years ago. Well done, and long may you continue to flourish.